Right folks, welcome to this exciting video where you once again join me in the wild landscape of Scotland. And for this adventure I've come to a cool ancient abandoned location that's hidden here within these wild lands. It's actually a real old Scottish castle built in the 16th century and it's called Vayne Castle, and it's kind of abandoned here in the wild land. It's agricultural land, but the castle's kind of in the wild land at the side of that. And yeah, it's an interesting place to explore. I was here one time in the summer with the channel DJ, but we discovered there was so many ticks about in the long grass and stuff that we couldn't continue to explore. So I've come back now, the wintry cold weather folks, and I can see it's a stubble field over here. So I'm going to basically head in and document this history at the far side of this stubble field. So on the summit of this hill here I can actually see deer running, and that just shows the sort of wildlife and nature that we're going to see along the way here. Last time I came as well, we couldn't even walk near this area because it had freshly been seeded. We had to take some mad route. So with fields like this folks, they'll get planted with their new crop in the springtime. Because often, well, there's two planting seasons. There would be winter crop, which is planted before the winter, and most of that's already in the ground. And again, there's another planting season in the spring. Fields often it's a bit wetter or whatever, they're left and planted in the spring. But often just with the crop rotation, it can depend. Like each year, you could have a different crop in each field planted at a different time of year. And now I can see the silhouette of the castle in the distance. Vayne Castle folks, it's just a mad scene out here. There is still actually some bouts of straw along here which I doubt very much will get baled, but I've just been jumping over them as I came along. And often it's important when you're on adventures to respect the farmers, and if they've got bouts of straw you don't want to be kicking it all over the place, because if they do come along to pick it up, the machine won't be able to pick it up if it's all spread out. And just check this out, an old internal gate here. I'm just blown away by this breathtaking scenery in the blue sky. See, with this castle here, it's one of these old ancient Scottish castles which was taken by the English in the Highland clearances, and then the land and castle around here would have been given to like some of the rich noblemen in the area, and then years and years have obviously progressed since then. But I believe the family in this area that had this castle built the new farmhouse and massive farm at the top of the hill using some of the stones that had actually taken from the old castle walls. But that did happen a lot in Scotland with old historical buildings and stuff like that. Quite often they would take stones from those buildings for use on newer builds, because at a certain time nobody actually cared about these old buildings and old places, and it's just sad to see that these magical massive constructions can just get destroyed in such a way. Check this out here folks, we've made it to this incredible ancient historical wonder. I just absolutely love this construction. And shout out AKR, he was the first person that ever told me this building was even down in the hollow, and it was mad, like, find out the history, an old 16th century castle like that can one day just be left and abandoned, forgotten in the land. And this one's made out of the incredible red sandstone, and it gives it such a character. Last time we came everything was so overgrown and green, whereas now it's got this wild look of the winter where the grass is all yellow, most of the leaves are off the trees, and we've got this little bit of sunshine here lighting up the ancient stones of the castle structure. Apparently it's a classic Z-plan type of castle, but there's not really a great deal written about it online or the history, apart from the fact it was given over to the family, which then used the stone from it to build a newer house up at the farm. It is insane to think how it may have looked before those stones were taken for the more modern construction. The interesting thing with this, it's got the round massive tower at this corner. Wow, look, here's the deer. Check it out, folks. I always say the deer are like so far away we can't see them. So like you probably don't even believe me that these animals are around, but there you go. There's the evidence. This other deer's coming back across. It doesn't even know where it run. The other ones kept running the opposite way. Oh, this one's come over here and stopped. It maybe didn't see where its friend had even gone. As they were both running in terror and fear. Maybe as the family of this castle at one time had done. You can just imagine as well, at a certain time, these castles were genuinely on the front line of real wars and battles on these wild lands. I can hear another deer. I was just watching it in case it jumps. It might not see me and jump and knock me out. I could hear the branches bristling and rustling. I think I need to step over. Look, there it is. There's another deer there. Jumping the dike. Anyway, folks, let's head on to this ancient historical wonder right here. Wow, what a crazy wilderness we're in the middle of. And it's almost on the edge of this forest. Also built close to the river at the bottom of the hill, which is interesting. They probably used that as a source of water, but maybe also it took sewage and unwanted waste away from the site as well. But also, most likely within the castle walls and construction somewhere, there would have been a deep well, because most castles had that. There's some amount of planes like flying over today, and I could just see their vapour trails in the sky there. Wow, this is such a special location. On my YouTube short videos, I often have little clips of this place from the last time I came, because there's just so many incredible historical details. Like that little opening up there, and the grand massive fire. The lintel stone is just an absolutely huge construction. And then they put an arch of stone above often, things like that, to take the load off the lintel. So it's just crazy to see the different architecture and the way that things were built such a long time ago. Just think about the people that put these stones into position. And then think about the people who were looking out the windows after they were constructed. Think what they might have seen out those windows when they were looking out. People approaching on horseback. I'm not sure where the main track came to this castle from. This is just insane, folks. I'll head round this kind of side of the castle here. We'll try and figure it out. I'm sure the old front of the castle's been round here. Sometimes with these old Scottish buildings, they were changed so much. Like over the years, they were added to and developed. If you consider the hundreds of years it's been since they were in their prime, then you can imagine. Look at this. This is one of these arrow firing slots, folks. That's a genuine defensive position right there. And you can see a similar design on the modern, well, slightly more modern, like World War II defences and stuff. It's a similar design. It's difficult to kind of shoot into the hole, but it's easy. You get a wide angle when you're firing out. Wow, this is so cool, folks. I love, often even when I revisit sites and go back to places, I can just see so much more of the history that I missed the last time. And an interesting detail with this, you have to imagine originally the land here would have been probably lower. Often the castle door on these was actually up on the second story, and that was for defensive purposes. Obviously they didn't want people easily getting in, but the years that's passed, you can just tell from like the amount of wear and weathering on these stones. The sandstone's obviously quite a soft stone, so it's crazy to think how grand this originally was. And it's had all these towers and different parts. And I'm wanting to have a look over here when we're finished, because I'm sure last time I didn't get to finish the explore properly. We realised there was ticks kicking about and we just cleared right out. But I think this frosty, colder weather we're getting now has sorted them all out. Look at this door here. It's been an incredible, like, detail carved door originally, and then at a later time it's been blocked up, so there's no external access to this tower, and there's just one little internal door. See, that must have happened at a time, potentially, when they were making the castle more defensive. And then look at this, the way the lintel stone, like half of it's fallen down. And that proves the fact of how these arches in the stone actually do take some of the load, because it's still holding this up. But the incredible thing, look at the detail of this corner tower here. Think how grand that would have been reaching away up. And then look how these stones here don't actually match these ones. So I think the bottom of the window had been up at this height here. Because look, you can see where the original bars had actually been in these windows. And it was like a crisscross pattern here going up and down. Look, that's the original top stone there as well. Wow, yeah, there's so many trees and broken bits of wood in there. It's just a crazy scene of history. And look at this interesting defensive hole right here. Wow. And then there's one down here as well. Such a heavily guarded area. These castles were genuine, like, defensive positions, obviously, in the land. And it's like this tree here. I can't remember the last time when I came, but it almost looks like somebody's been throwing these trees, like, in here. And that's probably to stop people going in and climbing about. But often going in and just respecting the property, but documenting the history along the way is obviously what we're all about. I could just see interesting, like, arches in the stone at the faraway wall. It's crazy how there must have been something in there which had been changed. Yeah, there's just so many, like, little dead tree branches and stuff on the ground at this time of year. So another interesting detail with this, you can see how these stones look like they've been part of a doorway which has been moved or shifted. And there is other detailed stones sitting there. Must have been from parts of the building. In different parts which are more eroded, they've got less of that licheny, mossy stuff on them. And you can just imagine how red and vivid the colour must have been originally when this was first constructed here. It must have just been insane to see. Wow, yeah, this is so cool. And it's actually good that they've done this, because it looks like, again, this is going to protect the structure. Because that tree there would have kept growing and potentially knocked this wall down. And that obviously prevents the roots from cracking it apart. So, yeah, it's good to see that was cut. That may have actually been there the last time I was here. Because I go on so many adventures, it's just mad. When I go back, even if I've been somewhere before, I just see details and forget things that I'd even seen before often. Look at this, there's the little holes in the wall there, which is interesting. And there's just crow's nests and stuff. Wild animals just move into places like this. Once the humans leave, last time I theorised this was potentially a safe up here on the wall. But I'm not sure if there's been windows or what there, but there's those grand arches in the walls at the top. Yeah, it's super cool. Look at this as well, folks. The detail on this inner wall here. It's got that almost pillar-like part, which is interesting to see. So another interesting thing, like we've seen with ancient castles, this lower floor would have had this curved roof. And you can see the outline of it still. The side walls are curved, and the whole bottom story would have been like this. And look at this over here, there's a little window kind of area at the bottom. Wow, it's amazing how stuff like that. I'll push the bush across, look at that. It's just like a wildlife haven in there. Yeah, it's amazing stuff like that there, so worn with all that above it. It's just a matter of time before the details like this get lost and fall down. I think there's been a spiral staircase going up that corner, and then this massive round tower. And then look at this little doorway. You have to imagine the height I am, and that shows you the amount of land that's built up where I'm standing. For the people, they would have been walking in and out this door here. But today we have to duck down and get super low. Yeah, look at this. Wow. This is so incredible, folks. Look at this spiral staircase. What an incredible feat of ancient engineering. And I can see the tower at the top's been like square, and the stone finishing's been so detailed. It's just mad, like the hundreds of years that we're witnessing here of deterioration and the building degrading. And then the spiral stairs continued down there to another lookout defensive position. And it's just insane to think this is genuine kind of defensive buildings of its era, but also a settlement for probably like a family or like a clan. And the stairs, there's just faint remains of them leading all the way around. You just have to imagine, like, when these stairs were still in position, how incredible this must have looked. And people's probably been exploring this for hundreds of years. Wow, folks. Yeah, on a structure like this, I'm just staying like super close into the edge, because that's where the only strength is left on these stairs. Yes, we've made it up onto the second story. There's the route I came into this place. I'm obviously no touching any of the brickwork here, because look at it. Stones like that are just teetering on the edge. We've got this mad like winter sun here, and it's exploring season for sure, folks. I love coming into the heart of abandoned history and documenting it for people all over the world. Some countries don't have history which is like this ancient, and if they had something this ancient, it would be so much more like special to them or sacred. Whereas in this country, there's so much ancient history, a thing like this will just get left and abandoned, and each day and night the bricks just deteriorate and disappear more and more, and before you know it, all this history's gone off the face of the earth. It's no more than just like a story in a book that nobody would even read. It's just old times, folks. And look at this. This is another defensive hole looking out this way. Wow. See, I'm not sure what direction the main approach should come to this. There's been another like grand window in this area here. And you have to imagine the arch. There's an arched roof below my feet here, and that's the second story I'm standing on in this building. So you have to imagine those arched roofs over there. There would have been another door, and you would have gone into the castle at the next height, and I think it would have linked up with a spiral staircase at the far side. Here's an interesting detail, folks. They've got a secondary arch of stone there, and that'll be to take the main load off further down, because this is such a great chunk of wall in front of the chimney here. But another detail, look at that row of stones. They're just hanging on to their existence up there. The history's almost gone and forgotten. And look at this massive chimney leading up here. Oh, shouting up the chimney, folks. Look at these lintels as well. It's a miracle this thing's even standing. The years of wind and stuff blowing around this corner. You can just see how the stones look. And I just get blown away with a scene like that. And just think, when that was put in, like, it's just crazy to think the people that were stoking this fire with their sticks or whatever they had back at that time. And then maybe the conversation that went on in this great room in front of me. Maybe a dining table with a massive pig which had been roasted on the spit. And then the talkings and the stories of the time. It must have been insane what they may have talked about, or even how the wild land looked. Check this out, folks. That's the kind of seeds that you get on some of the plants around here, and if you lean on them, they just stick to you. But that's the way those seeds like spread over the land. Look at that. That's the way they spread over the land. They obviously stick to animals, move down a bit, and then they drop off when the animal brushes against something. Whoa, look at that, we're quite high up. And then check the lookouts on this tower. That's obviously the tower we could see a minute ago. It's had a square top on it. It's not just been a boring castle, this has had some proper style and architectural detail. I can also see there's been a section built on down there to the side, which is now gone. But I'm thinking that may have been another part which even led out this way. So I'm wanting to go and have a wee look on that rough bit of ground when we go out of here. Wow, insane scenes of Scottish history once again. I would say this is the Great Hall here, or one of the grandest maybe rooms that they would have come to reside in the evenings, maybe with a rum or a whiskey, or maybe no even those incredible drinks back at that time. It was maybe some ancient barley water. And there's like trees and stuff growing. There has definitely been a roof at that height, and there would have been more rooms at that far side. Let's just go to this corner of the room here, folks, and take it all in. Wow. I would say like that spiral staircase there is one of my favourite details. Yeah, it's just so cool. I should actually get a couple of photographs of this. Sometimes I'm on adventures and I forget just to stop and take a picture, whereas I'm actually standing in front of something which is just so incredibly looking. So I was just getting a couple of angles of this place, folks, and I was just blown away by the history and what I was seeing. I love the way those green steps spiral their way up through the red brick of the tower. The green mossy steps that catch the rain coming in the open roof. And you can see how each little opening's been different to fit where the stairs been going round. But look at this detail here as well, folks. There's where the original door or whatever had latched in. But I'm being super careful because obviously that there is a big drop. Wow, these lands are just magical, folks. Look how thick the massive stone slabs have been right there. And they're probably like a good 8-inch thick or whatever, and the walls 3 foot thick, I would say. But they're even thicker in places. It just depends what part of the castle it is. Now I need to head back down out of here. This is just mad. It's like going to a fairy tale scene when I'm on these adventures. Sometimes I look around but I forget to aim the camera certain directions, so you can see how the exact area I'm standing looks. It's just mind-blowing sometimes. But obviously the human eye can pick up so much more. As I look around, the camera and I have to aim it around like this, and it's like, that is just insane. I'm often just blown away or like lost for words when I see something like this. And it's just so peaceful in these locations. Here, I just turned around, folks, and saw this behind me. It's that proper drop right there. And then we're right up at the floor height where that safe was potentially like behind a picture on the wall. And then there must have been another spiral stair coming out that corner. But then there would have been another floor above us for sure. And you can see it there, the evidence of it. And then with the towers, there was an even higher floor there. But an interesting detail I've just noticed, coming out of the stonework at this corner, there's a proper interesting carved stone. And that must be where the original like roof or whatever wooden beam had been. I can see the door also leading through that way from the tower. So it must have been so cool. See, originally when this castle was in good condition, it must have been so special to explore. Whereas now it's so far gone, I just peel back the layers of history as I explore. But also you have to imagine this stairs, when these stones were all perfect, it would have almost been like a centre column leading all the way up, and by the time you got to the top you would be super dizzy if you're going round and round. But look at this as well, folks. You can see where my head height is standing here, and that shows you how much debris and dirt has built up in those hundreds of years since this place was in its prime. And wow, look at this now. This gives you an idea of how that other section would have looked where we first came into the castle boundary there. Originally it would have also had the curved roofs like this, giving so much strength to the castle above. But sadly with this one I can see the water's just dripping off the roof. The more years that pass, the more these places just degrade and decay. And look, the ground level outside now is obviously so much higher, but originally there's been a proper lookout, defensive position right there. And I love the way it's shaped, just the same as what we see at these World War II places. It's just an absolute magic scene. Also, when I'm in a place like this, I look around to see if there's any like ancient graffiti being scored in for people for any age and time. Yeah, in Scotland, everything's so damp. You always get this green, kind of like mossy layer on the surface of all the old buildings, and that's what we can see in here. But it almost gives it a crazy character. And there's just not even a sound in a place like this. So that's just such an incredible scene of abandoned Scottish history right there, folks. And that's just what I love to show you on this channel. It's like crazy history, and I never know what I'm going to be standing in the middle of next. It's like history from these ancient times mixed with like the more modern history and the interesting details of these local areas. Just so cool. Also, I can see in here all these stones. This is probably what's left over from the time they were taking stones from this building and then using them. A lot of the stones which made like the former arch through there, they were most likely the ones taken away for the new builds in the more recent years, which is still a long time ago. It is literally hundreds of years even since this stones were taken and the new house was built and the new farmhouse or whatever. And then look at this interesting detail with the shape of this. So there's been this interesting opening here, folks, which I'm not sure if it was for loading up supplies or maybe even loading in ammo or whatever back in the day to this castle. Maybe they had a delivery of cannonballs or something coming from a certain area, but I believe places like this wouldn't have been using cannons. It's all been archery, maybe longbows and crossbows back in the day. That's why they've got these openings here. If it had been cannons or whatever, they would have had a completely different setup. Like some of the castles that I actually saw, like the one on Isla that I visited. But look at this here. Here's another detail. The ground level's up at the top where that is. But look down here. It just shows when they were getting their supplies, maybe. Like through that top window. There would be somebody here guarding from the bottom, ready to fire out this defensive slot. And it just goes to show like how heavily defended this sort of thing was, and maybe they had no idea who was even going to be turning up at places like this. Anyway, let's keep it moving, folks. I can actually see, look, one of these stones is starting to fall out, and that's how when you explore these places you always have to come with the greatest respect to them and try not to damage them. When I'm up like on that second story, I'm right in the middle of that area at its strongest point. Check this out here as well. Like, look how low down I can stand. That shows the level of stuff that's come in. But still, even at this height, the door's way down lower. And that shows how grand and massive these places originally were. It looks smaller because of the height of the floor right now. As I look around, folks, I'm blown away the amount of places I've found that I never knew existed. When I started doing YouTube, I used to think, oh, I wish there was some stuff around my area that I could explore. And like here I am years later realising that everything's just on your doorstep sometimes. It's just about going out on an adventure and you end up finding so much cool stuff. There's just years and years that pass since this cool stuff was abandoned. It's such an adventure to uncover the layers of history and see what's left. See this detail as well, look, there's another kind of stepped in bit there. So I'm not sure what there had been in here for like walls or whatever. But it is super interesting, folks. And right now I'm under this lintel, and this is cool, the way the stone here is built. Because it arches this way here, but also look, it's part of the same arch that goes up there. And that just shows the carving and the craftsmanship. And once again, it's like these doors have had... Every door I've seen on this structure has got like a double bolt mechanism or whatever. Now look here, this is the best kept stairs in the building, I would say. See this torch, folks, it's fine and handy. You might see me shaking my phone, but that's how you switch on the torch with this phone. So it's handy for doing videos like this where I can just switch it on, document this how the stone's been perfectly curved in shape. And I believe that is an original architectural detail. And they'd actually spent time on that, and it would have just looked so grand. And then that other lookout down there, you can kind of see the light shining in there. Wow, I just love recording as many of the details of the history as I can before I leave a site like this. But I'm going to keep this adventure moving. It's like somebody's had a wee fire here or whatever. Look, there's where the door latch has gone in, or maybe a door frame. And then this massive structure looming over us from here. It's so like covered in sticks and stuff. I'm not going to try and push up through that, because obviously I'm here with the respect to the landowner and things like that. I'm not here to be just like climbing through areas like that in case I damage some of this brickwork. So I've made it out of the main structure, and now I'm round at the side where I was theorising there had been this. When I was looking out that window, I was theorising this wall here had definitely been built so it was sticking out, and I'm not sure for what reason or what has been here, but a cool detail. You can see how perfectly curved the wall is up there, but when it gets down to this height it's just proper 90 degree, and that shows that there was genuinely a wall here that continued out, maybe even like a perimeter wall. This may have been outside the castle grounds here, and then this here may have been inside the castle grounds. But I can see all the lookouts now that I was seeing from the inside, and just look at this one, right at ground height now. That's the one at the bottom of the stairs. I believe originally that would have been above head height, with consideration as to how much the land has changed and shifted. All the original corners of the castle's that perfect curved way, and each tower's had like a square top. So it's been the round tower going up with like the square top, and I think I've seen details like that on, I think, Glamis Castle and other Scottish castles like that. I've got similar architecture, and you do see that with these defensive castles. A lot of them were built with similar styles or techniques because it was for the maximum defence and protection rather than anything else. Look at this. I think that's like an original hole going in there for some reason. Maybe a vent or a flume, or it could even just be a coincidence it's worn like that. And look, that's been down into that lower floor, which has just had a small window at one time, which I believe is an original feature. Most likely a lot of stone was maybe taken out through this hole, but I believe there was a way they could destroy castles back in the day by like tying a chain up through all the windows and then pulling out the lintels. Because I saw that same detail, maybe not even a chain, I'm not sure what they used back in the day, but for sure I've noticed a lot of castles down where the windows are, it's almost, you can just see it how it's been like pulled out or blown apart in those areas. And this one's the same, but obviously considering they've taken stone, it's hard to decipher what was an original battle at the castle or what was just simply quarrying of the castle. Yeah, look, the stones here, it's just insane to see it, the curve, the shape, the way they did things back at that time, folks. It's craftsmanship that's just gone now and forgotten. They probably had techniques and things which is just forgotten nowadays as well. Yeah, so that's up at that second story of the castle, and you can see how much the land here's risen up. And then look, within like the mortar layer or whatever it is they used, it's like a limestone mortar back at that time. But look, there's some stones stuck in, and that'll be like an original feature, I believe, of the castle. Look how it's like eroded away. You can see how the harder layers of the sandstone bedrock have been left, and then the soft ones get washed and blown away with the wind and rain. Yeah, look at the weathering at this corner. Some buildings and structures is like that in Scotland. Like, one side of them will be properly eroded, and then the next side, it looks like there's no even been any weathering at all. And that's because often in these glens or wild lands, most of the weather can come from one direction more often. Yeah, this is so cool. Once again though, where the windows have been, it's like ripped out in that area. And this wall here is actually starting to lean back. So that's another reason it's cool to document these places. Like overnight, a place like this can change dramatically or drastically. Even though nobody will be quarrying a place like this for stone anymore, it's nature itself that could start destroying it at this point. But I'm wanting to head down onto this bit of wasteland. We've just walked the full perimeter of this castle, and you can imagine what ancient warriors may have done the same thing back in the day. Think what they were wearing and stuff back at that time, folks. Like the old clan colours, or maybe when the English came up to these lands, they would have been marching around here, maybe thinking about a plan of attack. Look at the stone detail here, folks. This is interesting. Check it out. Above this window, look. Look at the carved stone then. Look at the roof at that side. See how perfectly smooth and curved it's been. And then once again you can see this has had the metal bars in the window. This window's less defensive here, but I can actually see stones sticking out as if... I'm not sure what's been... this may be the well. Some of these castles literally had a well in a building like this, folks, and that could be what's doing there. Similar to Bolumby Castle that I was at recently. It had a well down in a hole like that, and that could be a theory as to what that was. Super interesting, folks. This could be the well tower right here for the fresh water. Often on adventures I throw these theories out, and it is mad. Like sometimes they would have an indoor well like that which was fully defended. Even if the castle was under attack, they could have a drink of fresh water. So most often, folks, the holes in these well towers were dug down so deep it would be down lower than the height of the river there, and then the water would seep through the ground from the river into the well area which had been dug deep. Sometimes they could be hundreds of feet deep, but obviously with the well at the bottom of the hill there would be fresh water within the water table in this area. And I have seen well towers before, and that is kind of what I'm thinking this has been. Like if you've never seen a well tower in a castle before, you'll be thinking like that's not what that's been, but honestly like that is how they built them. The well within the castle was well protected. This is interesting as well here, folks. On the ground it's all these red pieces of stone which I believe are leftovers and maybe other parts of buildings or whatever that's been bulldozed or shifted by the farmer over the years. Also, this could be some of the stones that was left over from the time that they were quarrying the big house there. But I'm wanting to go and have a look at the water's edge here and see how the lie of the land here looks. There's another interesting kind of hump in the land as well here. It could have been some little outbuilding or crazy little structure. Wow, it's a proper big drop down here into the wild land. Yeah, I've not seen the castle ever from this angle, and you can see how grand it is from a distance. Such a shame we couldn't go up the spiral stairs to the top floor. Yeah, there's definitely nothing in this mound, folks. It must just be the lie of the land here. What a mad scene that is, folks. Let's take a look over the edge here. Since I got here, I have actually heard some gunshots, and I believe, well, this is a Saturday, so in Scotland, they could be out shooting on estates like this on a Saturday. Wow, that is a super sheer cliff right there, which is mad, because I was wanting to go down there potentially, but obviously, lethal cliff, folks. Yeah, because I was theorising the last time, some of these old castles used to have an escape kind of tunnel or a secret tunnel which would have maybe led down to the bottom of that sort of cliff there. But also you can see why they would have built the castle on the edge of a cliff like this. Think of the defensive assistance that this land here gives you. It's a natural strategic position. This is like having your castle built so much higher up in the land than what it is. The land itself's your natural defence. I'm going to keep on pushing around this way. There's a big tree over here. Wow, look at the castle with the sun shining on it, folks. We're blessed to find abandoned history like this and to be able to document it. It's such a special thing. And then the wild land that's in the middle of. Look, I tell you how cold it is today, folks. Look at that. That is genuine frost on these leaves that I'm dealing with here. Again, this is some proper cold Scottish conditions. Wow, I can't even believe the lie of the land here. My exploring spirit is telling me to go down to the bottom of this cliff here, folks, and explore. And look, there is a way down. I'm wanting to go down here and make sure there's no castle related history, folks. Look at the lichen on that tree right there. So check this out, folks. Here's an interesting theory here of the history. It almost looks like the stone from the castle could have been quarried from this very same area here. Because look at the similarities in the bedrock. Scotland does have a serious amount of sandstone kicking about in this area though. Whoa, look, this tree's broken. This is it lying down here. And look at this as well, folks. Another detail of the history here. This is an ancient track coming along here. An old road. Whether it's been an estate road or what, I'm not sure. But for sure it's been a road of some sort. I need to kind of try and get along here without this tree landing on my head. So I'm hoping I can document more castle history along here. Wow, yeah, this is some serious landscape here, folks. Check this out, folks. This bit here is just so overgrown. I can't actually get any further along. It's just a continuous sandstone cliff face all the way along. And from what I'm seeing, there's no actual any castle history, but this is just madly like overgrown in this area. These trees have toppled down, and even at this side it's lethal. This is just a lethal sandstone kind of cliff at this edge, so it's no super safe. Yeah, look at the way the river down here is flowing over that. Yeah, I reckon that castle's built with stone from this nearby area for sure. Oh wait, look at this, I just found a route through. So this little burn here, a little river that comes down, has fully carved this gorge over the years. And I believe from what I'm seeing, this has been a lot more of a ferocious, large river. And this land here could have been worn way back in the time when the glaciers melted. Because there would have been a couple of hundreds of years probably with a lot of water coming down areas like this. And I can just see, the reason I think that about the history is because this whole area is solid bedrock. And that water's worn its way down into that bedrock. And it's just so cool to see. At the river banks and stuff down there, there's no earth at all. When you look down into the depths of the water, there's no earth. It's all just sandstone bedrock. And then when you consider the depth and the height of this gorge, it shows how many hundreds of years we're dealing with. And then at the top of the hill I can see the castle sticking up. Wow. It is insane because when I look at the castle from here it looks so much closer than when I was at the top of the hill, which is strange. But I can see also there's no history down here related to the castle, which is what I was most interested in by coming down here. But I do believe there's been an old track or an old road that's led right the way down the side of here. Maybe at one time used by like a gamekeeper or the shooters in this area. But nowadays it looks like nobody's been down here for maybe like 40 or 50 years. So right now, folks, I'm attempting a secondary route out of this area. And I'm going up this kind of cliff at the back of this wasteland. Wow. Yeah, this is probably not that safe, to be honest. Yeah, I can see the evidence here where the water recently has been coming down here super heavy. All the grass has been washed down this cliff. I think one of my favourite features of this castle is the way this front little tower piece has been carved. It gives you an idea of the grandeur of the construction, and the spiral staircase as well. It just gives the place that character and shows you what it's been all about. Maybe the folk running up and down there, times of defence, or maybe just when they had the tea ready, they were running up with it to serve it up on the plates. And now I'm just battling back through this wasteland. It is good to see somebody's cut the trees on the structure, and shout out to them. Saving the history as well, that's part of it. And I'm just super gassed after walking up that cliff, folks. But I did want to go down and explore it, and I love wee nuggets of land like that. It's wee wild areas of paradise, and who would even know what history may be hidden within these big bushes. Could be other little nuggets of the building that remain to be found, maybe on a future adventure. But often with bushes like that, there's probably no history under them, and to climb through it is just impossible. Even in the winter when they're not growing, you can't even see light through bushes like that, they're just so dense. Right folks, let's head on with this adventure and keep it moving. I've got a fair walk. If I go around the perimeter of this field, it's a fair walk to get to the other side. But it is so nice on a day like this to be out for a walk and out in nature, seeing things that is rarely seen and exploring places that I've rarely been. And I just love the wildness of the land when you look down into an area like that. Getting the green mossy branches and stuff, it just gives such a vivid colour at this time of year compared to the yellowness and the deadness of the trees and the grass out here. So shout out everybody that's subscribed to the channel recently or subscribed to the channel ages ago. It's so cool that I can share these videos with people all over the world and keep these little historical nuggets alive, tell the story of their existence when they normally go unseen, hidden in these wild lands or wild forests of Scotland. Often the more days and nights that pass, they're just gone. But I appreciate everybody that has subscribed, and if you've not subscribed, this is your chance folks, give it a click. Also I do the short videos now, which is like a throwback to like previous adventures I've been on, so if you see a short video on my channel, there should be a clip to the original full-length adventure where obviously I document history in more detail. So in Scotland, in the winter, this is about as high as the sun gets in the sky, and it sets super early in the afternoon. So when I do these adventures, I hate to be on the go super early, so I can get plenty of videos recorded, obviously to last the whole week. But you can see from my shadow how long the shadow is at this time of year. That's from obviously the low winter sun. But if you're trying to go into an area low key, like infiltrating the perimeter, you have to be aware of how long the shadow is, because people can see that a mile away if there's like a 20-foot shadow going across their field. But yeah, I'm just blown away by how clear and still it is today. Wind is one of the worst things out here in Scotland for doing videos, because it just ruins the audio. Right folks, that was a fun adventure, and that's one of the coolest castles around the Angus area, and it's amazing just to see the details of history that's left with it, and it's amazing to see how it may have been changed and developed as its life went on as being a castle and a defensive strategic position here on the land, and then to tell the story of how it was taken over and by the English and then given away to the rich noblemen of their land, along with the surrounding lands here in Scotland. Until this day now, it's just been abandoned on the land here, sitting at the side of this field, decaying and degrading, and this video today has documented that history and told its story. Vayne Castle, a 16th century castle folks, documented here on the channel. I'm just about back at my car now anyway folks, so I'm going to end this one here. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll be back soon with the next adventure, wherever I end up going.